Well, Mayfield is the first senior to win the Heisman since 2006, meaning he's headed to the NFL as well as Lamar Jackson, like we said. But Bryce Love could possibly stay as a junior, but many doubt that, along with Saquon Barkley and Rashad Penny of San Diego State, who's a senior. And the only quarterback up in the air for the draft is Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen and guys like that. But here's the question, Tim. We're going to jump into the future. What players will enter 2018 with the Heisman buzz for next season? I know this is already kind of early to talk about it, but in your eyes, with who's staying, who are you going with?
Holy schmolies. That's a difficult question. That question was constantly evolving throughout the 2017 season, much less now the season's not even over, and now we're going to start looking at Heisman hopefuls for the next year. But I've got a couple of names to throw out there, and then I'll give you kind of my dark horse. How's that?
Yeah. Just give us a little pin.
I think you have people
points.
like Jonathan Taylor that will, from running back from Wisconsin. I mean, good grief, he had 1,800 yards last year as a freshman. So he may look good. I think you got someone like a Khalil Tate from Arizona. His biggest issue, he's out west, so he plays those 10 o'clock games when most of the East Coast is starting to shut it down. You got people like Jared Stidham from Auburn.
Ooh, I like that one.
So there are all sorts. I know your love bird Kelly Bryant could be up there for consideration, but I'm going to give you a name that could surprise people. And yes, I am being a homer when I say this, but I'm going to look at Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, the new quarterback at Ohio State. He is a much better passer. He's not known for his legs. He's much more known for his arm. He's going to have definitely J.K. Dobbins back and possibly Mike Weber back. He's going to have a full contingent of wide receivers back. He could be someone who will be a lot less predictable type of offense that Ohio State has run in the past, where it's load 8 in the box and stop the run, whether it be the running backs or be Barrett. He will be actually someone who can pass the football, pass in tight quarters, which would loosen up the defense, which gives another Heisman hopeful, maybe someone like a J.K. Dobbins or a Mike Weber, if he stays, the ability to do a lot more damage that way. So, and I thought that I was going off the radar, but I went to NFL.com and I saw some stuff on here about Heisman hopefuls for the 2018 season, and who's number 7 on this list? Dwayne Haskins.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And especially if he gets the wide receiver Khalid Hill back. I mean, those two were really connecting during that Michigan game, if you remember. And I think you're right. I think that offense that he's going to be placed under is really talented. And so I'll give you mine. I know you already touched on mine, but honestly, I think this is definitely going to be the year of a dark horse. I don't think we can determine, like right off the bat, who's going to be an all-star. But, of course, I'm going to go with my man Kelly Bryant. He's going to get a lot of attention next year for Clemson after such an amazing year this season. But, Bryant now has 2,753 yards of passing with 14 touchdowns, while he also kills teams with his feet. Like in that Miami game that we watched, the ACC Championship, he totaled 824 yards this season on the ground with another 14 touchdowns. But, here's I have 2 real picks for you that I think is going to step up. I think McKenzie Milton is very similar to Baker Mayfield with his ability to turn like a broken play into a huge gain, like where the defense is blitzing and the play kind of gets disrupted. Baker Mayfield always found a way to get that first down or touchdown, and that's the same way McKenzie Milton is in UCF. And UCF has now hired former Missouri offensive coordinator Hupel, and he helped Drew Lock lead the nation in touchdown passes. Do you even know who Drew Lock is, Tim?
I do actually.
Yes,
because
he's
why?
good.
Because he's from a major conference. He's not from like the AAC.
Okay, but first of all, UCF is pretty good. We'll get into that later. They're good.
Yeah.
Now, Milton already has
right.
5,778 passing yards over 2 years with the Knights with 45 touchdowns, and he also has 655 yards on the ground and 10 touchdowns. So just imagine once they get this new offensive coordinator in there that turned Drew Lock into one of the best quarterbacks of the SEC already. So just imagine him in there. But my next candidate, I'm going to go with you again, is Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin. He was third in the nation at running back with 1,800 yards, you said, and he averaged over 142 yards per game. And no team is more committed to the run than Wisconsin, and we've seen that over the past couple of seasons with Melvin Gordon as well, who's at San Diego Chargers, and he's going to be the focal point of their team next season for sure. I think he's going to be that guy that they rely on for the next couple of years until he goes to the draft. But he was 6th in the voting for the Heisman this year, and I think he's going to be the highest returning candidate for next season. And you were talking about dark horses, and I have two guys that people definitely need to watch next season, and that is my boy Cam Akers from Florida State, and get this, Tim, J.K. Dobbins of Ohio State, like you said. I'll touch on Akers first real fast before we go into the next segment. But Akers, in his first year at Florida State, he totaled 931 yards, but only 7 touchdowns. But his speed and agility is incredible. If you watch some of the highlights of him, just his footwork is unbelievable and how he can turn on the Jets. And I'm telling you, Florida State's going to be a team that you got to watch out for next season with Willie Taggart and Francois coming back and Auden Tate. All those offensive weapons are going to be coming back, so that's a team to look out for. But going into J.K. Dobbins, he had 1,364 rushing yards. He was the Big Ten Championship MVP. I know he only had 7 touchdowns this season, but, I mean, he's unstoppable as well. You look at his footwork and all the total yardage that he gets, he could definitely be like Saquon Barkley in my eyes. Get a little more weight on him, and I think he's going to be one of those guys in the Big Ten that Jonathan Taylor is going to have to compete against for, the Big Ten MVP next season. They did give Jonathan Taylor the freshman of the year in the Big Ten, which you kind of disagreed with as well.
No, I didn't disagree. He maybe consistently over 12 or 13 games he looked good, but certainly the head-to-head matchup, Dobbins blew him away.
Oh, he definitely did. And, Dobbins, he is going to have to fight off, Mike Weber in the backfield a little bit. But, Mike Weber, he fumbled the ball. Isn't that why he got pulled out in that last championship game?
Yes.
Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor, what did he end up with? I think he ended up with like 41 yards on 15 carries against Ohio State, which is really upsetting, while you have somebody like J.K. Dobbins who had 170-plus yards against...
174 to be exact.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you remember that. That's pretty good.
I'm good.
But that's our future picks for the Heisman.
Let me throw one more out there.
Oh, another one.
Just so I can say it, so if it happens, then I'll look like a genius. But maybe someone else is kind of, the old, I use this phrase an awful lot, kind of sneaking around the hen house, is Will Greer. Just kind of keep that one under your hat.
That is a good one.
He had a pretty good year this year, having a year under that offense at West Virginia, which is usually a pretty high-powered offense, and he actually seems to be a very competent quarterback. And their biggest deal is he's got to win games. I think he has the stats to back up that he could be a Heisman Trophy candidate. But part of the Heisman is got to win some games too. The last person to ever, the only person, not just last person, the only person to ever win a Heisman with a losing record was Paul Hornung, and that was back in the 50s. So it doesn't happen hardly at all.
Yeah, Will Greer, he's just going to have to bounce back from, breaking his hand in that last game. And, that's kind of a tough injury you got to come back from because your hand is a lot different. But I could definitely see Will Greer. It's just I don't like those Big 12, players, man. They really don't go up against anybody, to be honest with you.
Okay, but who won the Heisman this year?
I know. But, how could you turn him down? You know what I mean? How could you turn down all his stats that he had? But that's all we have for you with the Heisman hopefuls for next year. I know it's pretty early, but this is just going off of, what's happening this season and who's going to progress. So that's all we have for you.